Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so is this young brother sitting to the left of your screen. Saxophonist extraordinaire, has been around the world and back too many times to count, and has 4 incredible solo projects to his name, as well as being one of the foundational saxophonists in Sugarfoot's, the legendary Sugarfoot of the Ohio Players. We're talking with Derwin Daniels this afternoon. Blessings to you, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jerry. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm so grateful that your people reached out to us, and we have an opportunity to touch legendary. So thank you for your time, my friend.
Right. Yeah.
So Juan, tell me, when was the first moment, if you can remember, the very first moment that you thought, okay, this is the path I'm on, music is the way? How old were you and what happened?
You know, I'll go back to a Head Start program as a kid. 4 years old, my mom told me that we had a piano in the house. And she told me that when I went to Head Start, there was a piano there, and I played. I mean, I could play tunes that I heard my dad and play. My dad was a musician.
Oh,
and it was
a pianist?
He's played saxophone.
Okay. There you go.
Or songs that I heard in church and things like that. So I would pick out little tunes, and I had brothers and sisters who were taking piano, and they would work on stuff and play it, but I could hear it and go to it and play it. So as a little kid, I just picked up music because it was around me all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my first religion.
You knew then that was it. That's it. This is what
No,
my dad
I didn't know then. It was just something that we did around the house because it's 6 of us. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and we all just kind of did things in music, musically.
Wow.
But at the age of about 6, my dad gave me a clarinet that had been broken in half. There was somebody studying at Juilliard music, studying music. He was going through a passage and had problems playing this passage on his clarinet. He threw it against the wall and broke it in half because he was. So some kind of way, this other guy in Beaumont, Texas, where I grew up, got this clarinet. He gave it to my dad. My dad glued it back together and gave it to me with some reeds. I think used reeds on top of that, And I started playing clarinet. I just, I couldn't read music or anything, but I could play it. And so that was my first interest in the music. But it was like growing up in that family, my dad was a naval musician.
I see.
During the World War II era.
Mm-hmm.
During World War II. And so when they go play gigs, he'd walk out with his horn case, and it was like, or other musicians coming. It was like seeing what's the not DC Comics, but it was like the legends have landed when all these musicians would come over and they talking like, "Hey man, you cats doing this, and man, you cat," and that kind of thing. Musicians. I mean,
right.
So it was like those guys were heroes. So I felt like, yeah, I want to play. I want to play too. Just to answer your question.
No, that's real good. And I'm sure that you came to the point where either you were starting to go out, travel with bands, or do high school dances, and you said, I found my niche.
Yeah, of course. I think when you go out and you start and you hear this.
Right.
Hey man, it's like they enjoy what I did. Come on now,
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a great feeling. But yeah, I mean, growing up in school, I did get in school bands and learn how to read music and all that. But of course, I didn't want to do that at first. I grew up in Texas. I wanted to play for the Dallas Cowboys, of course. So my mom said, "No, you're gonna get in the band." I called and thanked her.
Though? Did you play?
I did play sports up until a point. But by the time I hit band and all that, I just did band. Of course, we played the, sandlot or neighborhood ball and doing all that kind of stuff. I kept doing that, but formalized sports, I kind of backed off and went on into, went into the music thing.
And I cut you off. I think you said your mom was the encouragement for that to happen. The music.
She was, and I called her and thanked her because I'm still playing music.
There you go.
My days of being a running back for the Dallas Cowboys would have been over.
I understand. Now, what about your siblings then? Are they professional musicians, or did they go off and do their own thing now?
Well, yeah. Older sister, she would sing weddings and do things like that. She had more of an operatic style and, opera. older brothers, they all played band. But my younger brother, who was like 3 years behind me, he still plays. He's a drummer in the Houston area. And he's playing on the regular.
That's good. That's really good. Now, does he is he a recording musician, or is he just traveling?
He's recorded with a bunch of different acts, a bunch of different people. But his solo project or anything that he's done, I've been encouraging to do it, but he hasn't, not yet, not at this point.
Absolutely. Well, you have four, if I'm not mistaken, you have 4 albums under your belt, doing very well. Now, were you recording prior to meeting Sugarfoot and doing the Ohio Players thing, or was that something that came after?
Yeah, it was. Interesting, and I tell the story. The song "Can We Talk" by Tevin Campbell. I was playing with a local group, and they were learning that song. And I was playing just lightweight keyboard stuff, and I hadn't really moved into the saxophone realm as much yet, because my early days, I was a drummer. I was playing drums, and I was doing lightweight keyboards, and they were learning "Can We Talk?" And at the time, I think Tevin Campbell was 16 years old.
Right.
And I said, I'm learning his stuff, and I've been playing music longer than he's been alive. At that point, I said, I want to write and perform my own songs. And that's when I made the decision. Yeah.
What year are we talking about now?
That was probably around 94, 95. Yeah.
And so you just went into the studio. Well, you wrote the project and just went into the studio from that. That was the defining point.
Yeah, I was able to get I got a soprano saxophone, and I had my dad's tenor saxophone that I still have. And he passed away in 88. So I got his horn, and I started shedding, playing in churches and doing other things and playing. So I bought myself recording equipment, and it was actually the reel-to-reel.
Oh yeah.
8-track reel-to-reel.
Right.
And I recorded my first project on an 8-track reel-to-reel. And it's still being played because I formatted it to a digital. I went to more of the old DAT tapes. I don't know if you remember DAT.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I
went to the DATs, and I was able to kind of transfer it to more of a digital format. So it still gets played in different places. And that project was called Full Circle.
Full Circle. Wow.
Yeah.
What was there any personal moments on there when you were writing, or were you just writing specifically for radio, or were you just trying to?
I started kind of writing songs and understanding chord progressions and the meanings of the chords. A major chord would be happy, a minor chord would be sad, a major 7th chord. So, getting into music theory, those different chordal structures have emotions. And so I started trying to write songs with different emotions dealing with those chord structures.
I see.
That's my process.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about your current status. So are you writing for your wife or children or anything like that now that you're down the line, or is it still just trying to evoke emotions?
Yeah, I still have songs that actually reflect my wife right now, and I need to record. I need to push the button because she was like, "You recorded all these other songs. You hadn't recorded my song yet." I play it on guitar and that kind of thing. I was like, you know what?
Right?
The next song I record, I got to record her. And I've been influenced by I have 3 sons, and I've been heavily influenced by them. And my oldest, he's around the house, said funny things, and even one song on the Journey CD that I did was called "I Have a Cut." And it kind of means that I have a song, but it was actually, he came in the house, I got a cut. And I was like playing guitar and doing stuff. I was like, oh man, this is gonna work right here. I got a cut. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, being a drummer, being a guitar player, keyboardist, and saxophonist, where does most of your inspiration come from? Is it, hey, I'm playing and I caught this groove on guitar, or I'm working out these chords, or is it just one that you kind of migrate to during the writing process?
All those things you mentioned, it comes from different spaces, different places. I might hear a hook in my mind early in the morning, late at night. And it used to be, I would run down I had my recording equipment. I'd run down to the basement and hit the buttons and hum it if I felt like getting up. Sometimes you're sitting there sleeping. God has given me this song, and I'm tired, too tired. But now I can just grab my cell phone. Look,
That's right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And hum it into the cell phone, and I've captured that thought. And when I hear it again, I'm like, oh yeah. So sometimes those kind of things happen when you know.
So what's the translation factor? Do you find, I mean, because I do the same thing, phone at the ready all the time, but there's sometimes where, all the orchestration is going on internally, but,
Yes.
if you're driving or whatever you're doing and you just, but you hear all that other, coming, is there a good translation factor when you finally get to put it down, that little da-da melody is giving you the strings and the horns and everything you were feeling?
Sometimes you lay an idea down and it doesn't really reflect what you're hearing in your head.
Right.
But I try to get it as close as I can to what I'm hearing in my head. Sometimes that feel is there. Yeah. And sometimes you lay it down and you're like, it's a little different. And then sometimes I like the different, it's like,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's God's kiss on it. Like, okay, I put you on the right road, but you're now at the right address.
That works. He's like, okay, that works.
Exactly. That's cool. Now I know that we're going to get into the Ohio Players moment in a second, but I know that you've also worked with some other incredible artists. Can you just tell us your story with you collaborating or being a side man or even just producing?
Well, I'll go back to being a teenager. In our area, there was an artist. Her name was, not say it was, he is Barbara Lynn. So Barbara Lynn had a hit out in the 60s, and it was called "If You Lose Me, You Lose a Good Thing." It was a big hit, and I've heard it on movies. I still hear it on, play. She was on American Bandstand doing all this kind of stuff. She was in school with my oldest sister, and she came to my parents and asked, could I travel with her? So this was like my first tour. It was summer. At the time, Motown had moved from Detroit to California. So we left Texas touring, doing military bases, all these different places. And I was playing drums with her. And we stopped and we made our way up to LA and Hollywood. And I played with Barbara. She still tours, still goes to Europe a lot. She's big over there and we stayed there throughout the summer. And we were gigging and doing stuff. We had some downtime too now because she was trying to get the deal with Motown at the time. I see. And she has other hits too. I mean, that hit radio. But coming back, she asked me about going to New Zealand, I think, at the time. And I said, Barbara, I'm going back to school. So I went back to school and finished school. But I did play with Barbara. She's a great person. I learned so much by going out with her and playing, just on performing. She plays left-hand guitar. She plays guitar and sing. Wow. Yeah. So she rocks it, Barbara Lynn. I got a chance. We had growing up, Zachary Bro is a guitarist from Port Arthur, Texas. And I played drums with Zach. And, he came in from North Texas State, which is a real jazz college there in Texas. And he started playing with Roy Ayers. He played with Donald Byrd. He played with all these different people. And I got a chance to play with Zachary. He moved to New York, still playing with Roy Ayers, did his solo project, took off. Zach, I still hear his stuff on Smooth Jazz Radio and everything. Guitarist from Port Arthur, Texas. Did very well, but he passed away in, I think, 97. It was. Yeah, he passed away. But yeah, it was enjoyable playing with him. Some of the same songs we were playing in I'll call them the clubs around town and everything. Like, he recorded those songs, and still I hear him on the radio. And whenever I hear him, I just kind of smile, and just say, yeah, that was Zachary.
I can dig it. Well, now, being a multi-instrumentalist, what is your favorite? I mean, if you've traveled and utilized, all of the gifts you've been blessed with, what do you have a favorite over the other?
Saxophone is right now.
Is it?
Saxophone. I do play guitar around the house. Matter of fact, I'm looking at the guitar here. I just kind of piddle around a little bit with guitar, Yeah. And I write my songs because I'm not a great piano player. Understood. But saxophone, and I'll tell you the reason why. My dad played saxophone, and I saw what happens when he played. And I mean, he played very well. You know, he was from the Charlie Parker era, you know, where they were playing bebop and doing all that stuff. And he played that kind of stuff very well.
Wow.
And then Kirk Whalum was over in Houston, right down the road, going to Texas Southern. When he finished, he stayed in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in, I listened to Kirk play one night, and I looked around and people were standing in chairs and everything. And Kirk was just playing that saxophone. Absolutely. And I was like, dude, if the saxophone can do that, I want to do that, man. So I actually started kind of sharing a little more and playing. And I've met Kirk several times, talked with him, but I don't even know if I ever told him that story. But next time I see him, I'll tell him that he inspired me to do that, you know.
Yeah, Kirk is a wonderful spirit, man. He is just a generous dude, man. We have had several conversations, and our band Sound Doctrine, this has been maybe 6-7 years ago, but we were able to open for Kirk when we produced the Jazz Fest down here in the little village where I am. But Kirk, you know, he came and just laid it out, man. It was just a wonderful evening, and to dialogue with him, and we have talked many times since. He will be on the EntreMusicians, so we haven't settled on a date, but definitely he will be here. But
that's great, man.
What a great guy! And you're right, the emotion that he evokes from his instrument. But you know, it's so interesting, though. Again, this is why I posed the question to you, Brother Derwin, is the fact that, you know, I mean, I could feel the same way about Bob James sitting down to the keyboard. I mean, he's going to evoke emotions. Lee Ritenour or Steve Trout or Pat Metheny on the guitar. It's just amazing the different feelings and vibes that come from the energy that they, no matter what the instrument is. And that's why I asked you, because you do play them all. Is there one that you navigate? Yeah,
and I probably study more playing the saxophone, and guitar is you know, I teach lessons and do that, but I teach beginner guitar and things like that. But for a long time it was drums, and of course my younger brother picked up drums just as a natural. So we had a drum set around the house. I learned to play, and that's when I started, because it was hard to gig on clarinet. You know, you know, how am I go out and play some Earth, Wind and Fire on clarinet? You know.
Are you hip to Eddie Daniels? Do you know Eddie Daniels?
Very much so. I mean, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Say, okay, God, you know.
I don't have anything else to say, but yes, sir.
Yeah, because he rose it, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I first heard him on saxophone, and then later I heard him on clarinet, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, he's just.
Yeah. What can you say, right?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the Ohio Players moment. How did you come to our region, so to speak? You know, where we say Ohio is the funkiest state in the.
Oh my God! Yeah. I mean, think of all the legendary groups that came out, especially Dayton. And,
yes.
Okay, so a friend of mine, Calvin Lopeman, who I played some gigs with, guitarist. He's actually from Buffalo, New York, and another friend of mine named Earl Fleming. They had been in conversation with Sugarfoot. Sugarfoot had some health issues, had a stroke. He came back and said, I want to play. And I think Diamond, the drummer from the original group, you know, back, I don't know if they were planning on going out and everything, but Sugarfoot said, I want to go out. So they called me and said, hey, we're going to be putting together the group to play with Sugarfoot, playing Ohio Players. I was like, okay. I showed up, and we were having a rehearsal. And it's so funny, my alto, I never really played alto that much. I had a broke down alto at the time. But I learned Sweet Sticky Thing. I learned the solo because I always liked the song. And I learned it. So we were having a vocal rehearsal, and I kind of started the solo just like Satch played it on the record and everything. And Sugarfoot looked at me. He said, hey, man. He said, you played the solo just like the record. He said, Satch didn't even do that when we were touring. He would always change it. He said, man, I'm going to put you over the horns. I said, you want to put me over the horns? I said, okay. So I called a friend of mine over at North Carolina A&T, who's over the music department. His name is Dr. John Henry. I said, John, I need some charts, man, for the horn section. And he wrote out a couple of the charts, you know, like the Ohio Players songs, but really meeting Sugarfoot was real cool, because I watched Soul Train growing up. I was doing the bump back in the day, the Skin Tight and all that stuff, you know.
Right.
And I met him, and he was just so cool because he let me take it different places. He said, "Hey man, if you want to change that up, change it up with the horns." Of course, you know they're a horn band. I mean, it's
yeah,
not a tune that
absolutely.
a wild place doing without some horns in it, you know.
Well, the
With Pee
70s, the
Wee.
70s were,
Yeah, well, yeah,
all
of
that.
course.
That was just
Yeah,
like,
Pee Wee and Satch and those guys were putting together great horn parts and stuff. So I got a
absolutely.
couple of arrangements, and the rest we just kind of went to the ears, and and I wrote out a couple of things what I could do, just kind of write out a few lines, and we got out and started playing and touring. It was called the Masters of Funk tour that we were on. We played quite a few shows with that.
Yeah.
With the Barcades, Confunkshun,
Right.
Brick would come in and out. Dazz Band was there. Slave.
Yeah, man.
Lakeside would come in and out. Mary Jane Girls.
Mm-hmm.
And the list goes on with all those funk groups from that era. We would all tour. I mean, it'd be like a 2.5 hour show, just straight. Because, one band hold the last note, next one come in, boom,
And
we were doing that tour. Yeah, so all those guys, I got a chance to work with them and meet them and talk and of course I was playing them records back in the day, listening to all these guys, and getting a chance to meet them was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that.
That's absolutely right, man. Well, we have our hometown hero in Billy Beck, because he's
Billy Beck. Yeah, he's performed with us several times. Yeah.
Born and raised.
Whenever we were in Ohio, Billy would be there, and he'd come out and play with us. Yeah, whenever
absolutely. But we got to give it up, just legendary, because Ohio Players was, of course, being in Ohio. I mean, one of our favorite bands growing up. But long live the spirit of Junie Morrison, man, because the foundation.
Yeah.
What can you say? And then he went on to transform P-Funk. So, Junie.
Right. Well, and you start listening to like some of the hip hop stuff. They use a lot of Ohio Players. I was watching a thing with my youngest son, Kanye fan, and I can't. What's the name of the song with doom doom doom? It was just
Ecstasy, man, ecstasy. Come on,
just running it round and round, and I was like, wow. You start hearing the Funky Worm, all over stuff.
Exactly. And that's why, Roger, toward the end of his life, when he was going out to California and he was laying down his talk box and whatnot, again, that's why, if you're West Coast, and I'm not hating or anything, but even if you're West Coast, you got to pull from Ohio, because that's where.
Oh, man. No doubt. Yeah. I mean, when I start looking at it, all of the different groups, and even ones that you don't like, Sun.
Right.
And I remember Riding High.
Phaso.
Yeah. That guitar back there, that's Sugarfoot, because they helped produce that and stuff.
Absolutely. Do you remember the band Shadow? Do you remember did Diamond ever talk about Shadow? It was Billy, Beck, Diamond, and Chet on.
Okay.
And they had their own album out that had kind of blown up a little bit. I guess there were some contractual issues that were going on with the Ohio Players and the tax thing that they had to go through. And so they put out that solo project. But I got all that vinyl, man. I got all of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That was my era. So
right.
So what made you reimagine then Sweet Sticky Thing? Was that, your just paying honor to that period of time in your life? Because that's a very, very good cover, man.
Very much so. Thank you. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, because it was we played it every night. Whenever sometimes we started, we'd open the show with Sweet Sticky Thing. Because it was one of those songs that kind of really had more of a jazz. And I guess, and that's the one thing I appreciate playing with Sugarfoot too, is that when we would go out, I think a lot of people forgot that this band was multi-dimensional.
Definitely.
They didn't just do the funk stuff. They had great ballads.
Absolutely.
And they could take you into the jazz too.
Without fail.
you
And
know.
some rock. I mean, there are
Oh my,
elements of Fire, the tune Fire, which is just,
oh yeah,
OHIO. I mean, they could just like bounce. Angel,
yeah.
which was one. I mean,
Pop,
it's just
what
like,
is other one?
yeah,
And some of the rock groups like picked up Roller Coaster. Who was it? The Chili Peppers.
yeah, Chili Peppers
Uh,
picked it up.
and I think they did Fop too. Fop was a real.
Oh,
Yeah,
Fop is. And so again, with Dorskin and whatnot, I mean, come on, I was a kid, but I'm studying that stuff like
yeah,
hard.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And then Cameo, when Cameo redid Sweet Sticky Thing, I mean, it was just a footprint. That is a major song. And so,
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think the Cameo song was "We're Going Out Tonight," right?
yeah, we're going out tonight, but they did Sweet Sticky Thing on their album Machismo. And
Oh, okay. I didn't. I had never
yeah,
heard.
yeah, they covered it. You just Google that. But let me say this, and the reason why I bring them up is because a lot of people have tried. I've many cover bands, local bands, regional bands. That was one of the things coming up. That you had to know Sweet Sticky Thing. So when I got the information from Zoltan, and we were talking
Okay.
about a date to get you on, the first thing that I said to my wife when he sent that is like, he's gonna have to bring it. If he doesn't bring it, then I'll have to say no. That's it, because you're messing with a classic, and I'm
Oh
happy
yeah.
to
Well,
say, man, you did your
thanks.
thing.
The many days, and that's me playing guitar on that. So the many days sitting down with Sugarfoot
Yeah,
on the tour bus, and him telling, because he had some dealings with his hands, like corporal tunnel. After a while, he stopped playing guitar, but he pushed my fingers on there. Hey man, this is where you do that, So I'm sitting on the bus for hours, sitting next to him, saying, "Hey man, okay."
wow.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me,
Yeah,
one of the funniest stories from that tour. What was one of the funniest
man,
moments you had from touring with Sugarfoot and that section of the Ohio Players?
I don't know. We had several. I don't know. Funny stories.
Or most
But
memorable, let's say the
well,
most.
I can remember like we were in Vegas or somewhere. I can remember Sugarfoot trying to get away from some lady. She was really trying to get on, and he was like, "Get the lady off me."
So we're 40 years ago, he might not have minded it too much. Right? At that point, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
this is enough.
yeah. Or people showing up with albums,
Mhm.
or I remember one guy had a whole case of albums,
Yeah.
of Ohio Players albums, and we coming off the stage. It was a New Year's Eve gig we played. We were in Portland, Oregon,
Mhm.
and the guys called Sugarfoot coming off the stage. Man, we all kind of whipped down after the show, and he had all these albums, wanted him to sign every one of them, man,
Wow.
covers. And I had to he had the handlers, other people said, hey, we gotta move on, sign a few. The guy had a whole case of albums, man, wanting to sign
Well, that's the
them.
way, that's the way the music business was. And that's a good place to segue because, back in the day, you have an Earth, Wind and Fire or Barcades. You mentioned Commodore's Dazz Band, you had all of these groups, and it wasn't just one or two hits. I mean, they had albums at 15 albums easy. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
we're in a space as a music industry where it's one or two and pretty much it's done. It's planned obsolescence. You're good if you get four, and they're going to give you a Grammy on your
Right.
first one. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it's an interesting space to be in at this time when you have a little bit of gray and you can remember back that you really had to like do it. You had to prove
Oh, yeah.
yourself. There was talent. We grew up in the era where there were not videos, so the music had to speak for itself. You had to come on the stage and make
Mm-hmm.
it happen. You had to punch them in the gut, and that was it. Then we got into the videos, and where you had to be more stylish than you were
Right.
talented. You know what I mean?
Right.
And how has your experience been as you have started out and you've seen all these trends come and go? What has been the most rewarding time as you've transitioned through these genres? And secondly, what's been the most challenging you feel as we've had to adapt to quote unquote the new music business?
I think the challenging thing was it used to be a time when you would put out a project and you would tour to promote your project. Now your project is your business card, and you have to go out and perform. The project promotes your performance or your touring or whatever you're doing.
Right.
That's been the flip-flop. And also people understanding that musicians, as artists, you give up quite a bit to go out and perform. You stay in a room and work on things and go out. And sometimes it's not as appreciated in the world of being an artist, because they say, oh, you're doing this for fun. I do enjoy it. But also, it can be work too,
It is definitely work.
Yeah, it's work, and sometimes, setting up the equipment and doing that, if you have to do that on, concert tours, you're not doing it as much or having to do that. But when you're going out playing smaller gigs and doing things, and the playing part is okay, but the setup and the takedown and all that could be,
And the load out.
that's a whole other thing,
One of the things that, because we do some courses here at the EntreMusician, and one of the things that we try to share with our clients is semantics, because you hit something there when you said, well, you guys are playing, you're having fun. Well, the whole, vibe of the fact that we're playing puts a different connotation in not only the musician's mind, but the audience member's mind or the customer's mind. But, we try to say, well, you have a performance coming up on Friday because I'm performing, already your mindset kind of shifts. It's not like, hey, I'm just up here playing. No, we're performing. And, that
good point.
So, it's really interesting because you put that out there like that. It's like, they do think, and we are having fun. I mean, by God's grace, he's given us the talent and ability to express it, but it is hard work. So the next question, of course, that comes with that, because again, you've gone through the transitions with respect to an artist who gets paid a decent wage for his or her performance or his or her record, because there was a time, it wasn't always like fair, you know what I mean?
Right.
Fair enough where you could stay out on the road. It was fair enough where you did have some label support, but now it's not even a penny for a hardcore single that you put out, that you record, mix, master, hire the studio, the engineers, etc., and it's 0.00007 for that. And I think we've trained an audience. This is me. This is all in the question, so I do want to hear your answer. But I think that we've trained the audience to feel that music is free. It's just like water. I don't have to pay for it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's because you got the streaming now and all the other things. And I remember contacting. I'm a BMI writer.
Yeah.
And they told me, and I looked at, I don't know how many thousands of plays I had. And they said, it takes about 20 spins to get a penny. To get 1 penny.
Correct.
About 20 spins, where I remember, my music being played like on the Weather Channel or some other places. Oh man, you look at the, quarterly royalty checks or whatever you get, and you say, okay,
This is why I do this.
But then you look at streaming and whatever, the format is, and that's what they told me, about 20 spins to get a penny.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's a whole different thing. And people are listening to music so differently now too.
That is true.
And I don't know where we're going. I don't know where it's going and what's happening, but I am seeing some of the folks go back into playing instruments and doing those things. Because I feel like archaic sometimes playing an instrument where you can pull, putting the music together, you can just pull some files and things like that and all that and put together music. Let me tell you one story.
Sure.
We were on Tom Joyner Cruise a little while back. And bands use tracks and things like that underneath.
Yeah. That's the foundation.
Yeah. So we were on the Masters of Funk tour on Tom Joyner's Cruise. And Confunkshun had a problem with their they had like a backing track or something. They kicked it off. They're musicians. Didn't need it.
Exactly right. We'll do
Man,
it without it.
just
if we go off tempo a little bit, it's okay. That's still funk, right? You know what I mean?
That's it.
Absolutely.
It, man.
That's absolutely right.
And when we performed, it was just performing music. Let's play the instruments. Let's do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your thought then on artistic expression or writing for the current sound? Because that seems to be a challenge sometimes. This is what my spirit is telling me. This is what is being downloaded into me. I put it into my little player. I get to the studio and I'm able to flesh out what my spirit is saying. This is right. But it's not the current genre, the current trend, or the what's happening.
What I found is that if I can record with as many natural instruments as possible, it doesn't date your music as much.
Good.
You can have a new keyboard, a new sound, a new this, or something else that happens. You can put that in your music, but it's gonna date it.
Truth.
But I found that real piano, and you can go to Rhodes or those instruments that are in a even to the point of upright bass, or natural instruments just seem to stay current.
Word up.
Because it's been around forever and it's still gonna be around. Piano, sounds, those kind of things. That's one thing I look at. But I don't know. I think each era is gonna have its own kind of swing to it.
So how do you account for a Stevie Wonder, for example, that's been able to go every decade and remain fresh, although he does not compromise his signature?
Right. It's just unbelievable. I don't even know what else to say. Like with Stevie, I pull up some of his thing and I'm just like, it's just great music.
Yeah.
It's just great. I think he studied a lot. I remember going to see him perform. He did a whole set of Duke Ellington songs. So he's listening to these folks and getting from these masters, all of the things that he's putting in the music. And actually, when you start uncovering some of the things that he's done, I can also hear like parts of the song Body and Soul. I can hear parts of that in this song Golden Lady.
Yeah.
When he does Golden Lady, that's like the bridge to almost, I don't want to uncover this for your audience, because but okay, that's part of the bridge. That's like Body and Soul. You know what I mean?
Right. I do. But everybody's getting inspiration. It's just
the influence.
Yeah.
The influences everywhere. You hear songs. Yeah. And something talking about performing with Sugarfoot, I didn't realize until I started performing that so many people copied his style of vocals.
Yeah. And the guitar when he was scatting over. I mean,
Yeah. It was so many people. I mean, you go down and some of them admit it. Like, hey man, I copied Sugarfoot style. Oh girl, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was just him.
You got Larry Blackman for one.
Yeah.
I want to say this too. Again, because On Broadway came out around the same time that Fire was out, George Benson. And I want to say, even though he jazzed it out, that's a little bit of Sugar, that's Sugarfoot. You can't deny it. I mean, there's two different styles going on, but Sugar was really a trendsetter and making sure that you felt him because
they mentioned he mentioned to me they were friends and they both admired each other very much so, him and George Benson. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Now tell me, what would you tell the young entre musician who's just starting out in this business? I love the advice that you gave on using natural instruments no matter what genre you're in, so you don't date yourself. But as far as the business is concerned, as far as their mindset, discipline, and focus, what would you tell that young man or woman starting out in this industry?
I would say keep learning. Don't feel like you know as much because it's constantly evolving. And I would also say go back historically and bring yourself up on what happened musically. Read books on different people, and understand when you're in the music that it's an unbroken line, really.
Yeah.
You know, don't just stop at a certain point. You know, because I hear a lot of people say Stevie Wonder. That's my starting point. But go back and check out some of these people. You know, check out Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald. Read about these people in their careers. Satchmo. You know, the list goes on. And bring it up forward, because I think all those influences are going to help you. Mm-hmm. And also vary your listening. Mm-hmm. You know, go into some classical, listen to those, the way the music resolves and does things, the different periods, because music has been around a long time, even Gregorian chants, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I would say just broaden your horizons on that. I mean, that sounds like a cliche, you know, but I'm even doing it now. I'm just going into trying to listen to different people and understand musically what's going on, what made this, you know,
pop.
That kind of
yeah. No.
Yeah.
And that. What advice would you give them as far as the business is concerned?
The business would be to, again, try to read and understand. I would say business is about 80% of music, and the performance and all the other stuff is probably 20%. I mean, to be honest, you gotta be able to understand how to, if you want to get into this business, and you got to understand how it works. You know, like talking about with BMI, the ASCAPs and the CSACs, and you know, those people that collect your royalties, and understanding how that works. Mm-hmm. And then you need to go into the streaming world and understand. I'm trying to think of the name of this organization, but they collect the royalties and all that for digital play.
Yeah, the Sound Exchange.
And Sound Exchange. That's what I'm trying to think. Yeah. So Sound Exchange is it really pays the artist, mm-hmm. where BMI and ASCAP is going to pay the writers and the publishers.
That's correct.
But understanding that those streams, all these different streams come together.
Right.
I think it really helps. And also copyrights and things like that. Because I have a son he's more into the hip hop world. Mm-hmm. And just getting him to read and understand, this is how it works. You know, if you pull somebody's voice from this over here, you know, of course, that's their voice. You know, you got to break them off too.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. No, that's very good advice. Very good advice. Now, how do we get in touch with you? If somebody either wanted to book you for a show or find out more about you, how can we do that?
So I'm on different formats. Let me. I kind of sometimes my mind gets kind of wiped out, but let me see. Because Zoltan, he keeps me straight, and he said, "Man, these are your platforms that you work on." Okay, so
absolutely.
So on Twitter, mm-hmm. Facebook, Instagram, and Reverb Nation, Derwin Daniels.
Derwin Daniels.
Derwin Daniels on those. And then they can buy my music at Amazon, with iTunes.
Yeah. Spotify.
Juno downloads, and eMusic, and Spotify, all those different places.
Absolutely.
Is where the music can be purchased. So yeah.
Well, that's real cool, man. I so appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us here at the EntreMusician and sharing the memories and sharing the great advice. And
yeah, man.
I hope this won't be the last time you come through here, bro.
Yeah, Jerry. I love to, man. Love to be back on anytime. And anything that I can do to help too. You say you're doing some coursework and doing some other things at the EntreMusician. Absolutely. And if it's anything that I can do to help, man, please don't hesitate.
Oh, we won't hesitate. You know, once you put it out like that, you know, I mean, you know, be careful what you ask for.
Right.
Yo, yeah, Derwin, man. You know, but we are expanding the platform by God's grace. This is our fourth season that we're in, and it's just is growing. It's been a much slower growth than a person like me would expect. I would want it to be like this, but you know, there's something about that stew. There's the microwave, mm-hmm. and there's the stew, and the stew tastes better. So this has been a very organic growth, and the community is really building. And it's people like you who take time out of your schedules to just give advice and help keep the encouragement moving along. That's why we're
No
still
doubt.
here. So I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
man. All right. Yeah. And I have to say that I work with Virtuoso Music, and I have to get a shout out to Zoltan Williams, who works, for management and keeps me going and doing those kind of things. But man, it's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
Well, we could talk another 3 hours, but
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Because look, I talked about my music side, but I didn't say that's a whole nother side. I was a firefighter for a long time too.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's going to have to be part 2.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I have to talk about that. Yeah.
So did you find, let me ask this one question, because you went there. I mean, did you find, and sometimes EntreMusicians don't understand that, when you're reading a person's autobiography, there have been times where they couldn't just walk away from the day job like that. There's been times where you had to do both. Is that right?
Man, let me tell you, when I was touring as a kid, I was hungry for a couple of days. So when the front of your stomach touched the back of your stomach, you kind of get to the point where you're like, and that's, so like I said, that's a whole nother thing, the 9 to 5 and playing.
Yeah.
I was able to teach too and teach. I remember being in Japan teaching online. After the show, I'm going on grade papers, and the rest of the guys going after parties with Sugarfoot and Ohio players. So
no,
but like I said, that's a whole nother conversation, man.
Well, we will have it. We will have that one, and we'll have the one after that one, and the one after that one. You know what I mean?
Okay, Jerry.
That's real cool. Well, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, this is Derwin Daniels, and he is an extraordinary saxophonist, but as you heard, guitar, keyboard, drums, multi-instrumentalist, and we're just grateful for him coming by, sharing his heart with us. And check him out. The platforms are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. He's on Spotify. He's on iTunes. Just type in Google Derwin Daniels. We have his credentials up at the top of the screen. That's Derwin. My name is Jerry B. We are EntreMusicians, but most importantly, so are you. We will definitely see you next time. God bless.